So you guys, as you know, we have ended the regular season of the NCPL's Commander Draft. For those of you who made playoffs, congrats, and to those of you and myself who did not make it, we always got more tournaments and drafts to get into, so it's all about getting better and having a fun time, right? So with all that said, I'm going to go through a little bit of a wrap up here. It's going to be a little bit of a different video. Hopefully it will be less boring. I know I'm not the most exciting person to listen to, but I'm going to give my thoughts on my draft and my game style, my gameplay throughout the season. Then we're going to talk about the playoffs, the awards. I made a top 10 commander list, the honorable mentions, the top draft picks that I think were there, and some Pokemon that might have been too high or too low. So without much saying here, let's hop into my thoughts on my draft. So overall, I think I drafted a pretty good team in the end, but I think my initial draft was kind of weak. So I drafted some stuff that I wanted to try, and it just really didn't fit my playstyle. I do like to have a lot of U-turn and volt switching available to me. That way I can at least threaten it and have it available if I want to. If I want to make the Pokemon a clunky, bulkier type Pokemon, I can do that. Kind of like what I was able to do with Mega Ampharos. I could switch between the two. And Passimian. So, but my initial draft consisted of 3 Pokemon that are not there now, which are Mismagius, Barbaracle, and Sandslash. So, Mismagius is the one that I really wanted to work. I just loved its move pool, that it had Nasty Plot, it had Levitate. I just was too nervous to use this thing all the time, and it became a really big detriment when I was team building, leading me to switch it. I think it was a really good Pokemon to draft, just it really didn't suit my playstyle, and I think Ghosts are really strong in this particular draft. Not quite as potent as Fairies, but I think they were still very strong. Kind of underlooked at. We see Jonas using Cofagrigus really well, and this is a Pokemon that a lot of people aren't talking about, but I think Dusknoir really got a mega buff when they gave him Poltergeist, and I think this is a Pokemon, I believe Brian had it, was pretty annoying to deal with. So and then not to mention Josh having Dusclops, which we all know is just an annoying Pokemon in general to deal with. The Eviolite makes him just so bulky, and he's already bulky as it is. So but aside from the Mismagius, Rapid Spin on Sandslash and Stealth Rocks and Spikes were why I drafted it. The only thing is it just wasn't quite doing what I needed it to, and Registeel just did it better. Despite it being a ground type, it wasn't resisting ground, so it just became useless to me. The only thing it was doing was really, absorbing electric attacks, which, I mean, Registeel, Mega Ampharos, and Florges do just fine, so, and then Thwackey, of course, as well. And then for the Barbaracle, this was kind of my X-Factor Pokemon that I was hoping to just work out. With Shell Smash and Puff Claws, I thought it was going to be a great Pokemon, but it being weak to Earthquake was really annoying considering I had already had Registeel and Mega Ampharos weak to Earthquake, so team building was really suffocating. And then it's times 4 weakness to Grass, and we all know every freaking Pokemon gets Grass Knot. So just a really sad thing that those Pokemon didn't work out. But my draft turned out much better in my opinion. I wish that I was able to start off like this, so I was able to make trades throughout the season that would have helped me in my later games by counterpicking if I needed. So it's a kind of a habit that I have. Usually my initial draft is quite bad. My initial draft, it's not bad, but my initial draft always needs fixes. It's something that I'm trying to get out of. This is kind of going on to a point where I have a slow start because of this all the time. And this time my slow start paired with my over predicting just really crippled me. So and then I'm going to talk about my captain a bit. Florges. So while I think Florges was a good captain in this draft, my draft around it made Florges really suffocating to team build with. Yes, I found out that offensive floor just is actually really good in this draft. I found out a bit too late, but all in all, I don't think it would have made a big difference because obviously people would have seen that I was doing it early and they would have been preparing more for that later. It wouldn't have been a surprise. The thing is Florges as a captain, yes, it's a fairy, yes, it's a strong fairy, it's bulky, it's got defog, heal bell, all that stuff. But it doesn't have any mystical fire, it doesn't have nasty plot. There was just fairies that did what Florges did, maybe a little bit less, but with a little bit more move pool and a little bit more ways that you can build them, and without giving up that captain spot, i.e. Aromatisse, Clefairy, Sovali Fairy, you know, I even would count Gramble in there to do what the Intimidate Heal Bell. I mean, that's very useful to me. So I just think that I overvalued Florges a bit too much. I basically was like, oh, fairies are going to be strong in this draft, and Florges is a good fairy, which Florges is. It didn't do as amazing as I wanted it to do, I guess. And then I'm going to say that I probably should have stuck with my initial draft before I seen Florges. I basically built Florges core in like last hour before the draft because I seen Florges there. But my initial draft, which I really think would have been awesome, was Mindshell as a captain. I just think the Regenerator, the fighting captain, would have been awesome. It would have allowed me to get a T4 that wasn't a fighting type. It would have given me a slot there. Probably put Aromatisse in there. So the core that I had actually was Mindshell, Bronzong, and Aromatisse. So this would have allowed me to, draft Silvally Dragon, or, it just would have expanded my draft a lot more, I think. So, and then, so the last thing that I'm going to talk about my draft, and then I'm going to go on to my gameplay, is Ambipom. This is a Pokemon that I always look at and I'm like, damn, that's good Pokemon to draft. And then when I see people use it, I'm like, fuck, that's exactly why I don't draft it. It's so frail and it only does one thing, and it does that one thing on very thin line. It's walking thin ice every time it's in a match. People bring Rocky Helmet, this thing's going down. It's going to be a lot harder to use. If you bring Life Orb, if there's rocks, it's weird because it's not weak to rocks. It's a good offensive Pokemon. It can't seem to stay on the field for very long, and this was the problem that I was having with it. Every time I wanted to team build it, I wanted longevity in my team. I wanted to outlast people. I wanted to be able to outpredict people and kind of break them down like that. And yes, Ambipom can do that with Fake Out and stuff like that. It's so frail. It can't take a hit. You make one wrong prediction and this Pokemon's gone. And while I think it's a good Pokemon, I really pooched myself on that pick. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about my draft. I mean, I could mention Mega Ampharos, pooched myself a bit, giving myself so many Earthquake weaknesses. But lo and behold, I did not so bad with the Mega Ampharos. As my gameplay, though, I felt like I did really good in the mid to late stages of the game season. I really overplayed myself in the early season. Overplayed, I mean a lot of over-predicting, a lot of not playing it safe against players that I don't know how they're going to play, i.e. Zeb, i.e. Brian. Although I felt like I played pretty good against Brian, I was not safe around screens or setup. I was not paying attention to that. So those guys really were able to take advantage of me in those regards. As for things like hacks, I felt like I really got screwed pretty badly. People can say that they had their crits and their moments or whatever, but I really do feel that I really got punched down from hacks here and punched out of playoffs due to them. We can talk about the crit that I landed on Chris in that game, and yes, while it was an important crit, that I was able to bring down that team after like 45 turns or something like that of getting correct switches, correct predictions. I truly think that game could have went either way, whether I would have got that crit or not. But the ones that really hurt me was, in Connor's match, I was very confident in winning that match. I was doing very well. Toxicroak came out, set up. I calced Toxicroak to land an Ice Punch on Sandslash. Sandslash lives even after the +2. And then I would have been able to Earthquake and KO, which Earthquake reliably KO'd the Toxicroak. So I was prepared to, you know, sack the Sandslash if he got a crit, or, you know, survive, get the Earthquake. Well, yeah, no, I survived 100%. I remember I calced it. I was prepared to basically have Sandslash useless after that because he would be at around 20%. Earthquake, get the Toxicroak gone. Whatever he sends in, I was just gonna, you know, sack the Sandslash or switch out depending on what he sent in, and I would have been able to keep the Rotom, the Florges, the Ambipom. So the other thing is, when you guys will see me switch out the Ambipom a lot around the Toxicroak, I was thinking the Toxicroak might have had Sucker Punch. He didn't, obviously. He just kept Drain Punching, so that's kind of the crit and the freeze on the Sandslash there, stopping me from eliminating Toxicroak and Toxicroak getting the Drain Punch up, all that stuff. Just, I completely spiraled out of control after that crit freeze happened, and I really do believe if I had a +4 differential from that win, I would have easily been in playoffs for sure. So not to mention that really took away my mentality for a couple weeks. I was pretty mad about that. But yeah, overall I think I played pretty good. I proved myself a lot that I'm not just in the bottom tier of these players. Yes, I don't think I belong at the top yet, but I definitely have shown that I can compete with those people, that I'm not just a, you know, a wild factor that's kind of 50-50 and I get lucky. So I made very good predictions and switches against really strong players, i.e. Jared, Reggie, and Robin. I was very aware of what those players were trying to do in those matches, so I hope those things are taken into consideration when doing my rank. Yeah, that's really all I got to say about my gameplay though, and we're gonna head into the playoffs, and we'll talk a little bit about rewards as well. So for the playoffs, you guys can see that we have Matt versus William on the left in the sword side, and then Calvin versus Flo, and in the shield side we have Jonas versus Jared and Robin versus Reggie. So as for Matt versus William, this match, to me, is a little bit similar to Jonas and Jared. While people are going to say the gap between Jonas and Jared is bigger than the gap between Matt and William, I think it's a lot closer than what people are giving it credit for. Sorry. I feel like if William can get the lead right in this match and hang on to that momentum that he gets from the lead correct, he's going to be able to win. Whether he can do that 2 times, I'm not sure. William has improved a lot as a player, but his team is a lot of kamikaze, a lot of attacking, so I think this match is going to be a lot about who's going to get their wall breaker in. Who's going to, you know, is William going to allow Primarina in, or is Matt going to allow Mega Camerupt in? Both are extremely strong wall breakers against their team. Both don't want to invite those Pokemon, so that is how I feel about that match. I'm not sure who I would say wins. I think that one's kind of a hard one to go with. So as for Calvin and Flo, everybody's like, you know, Flo's got the worst matchup ever, you know, he can't win this. Flo's an experienced player. I don't think that, like, it's like impossible for him to win. Do I think it's a little bit harder? Yeah, but definitely don't count yourself out, man. Like, you know, it's you never do that. So I think Flo here is more than likely going to need to bring some wildcard sets though. Calvin has some really strong counters to his team, so I think Flo needs to balance that out with some sets that Calvin is not going to be able to prepare for, or won't have thought about. He needs to get tricky. If he's not going to do that, he basically needs to play very, very consistent, almost perfect in his matches, and get his predictions correct around Calvin. So that one's a tough one to call. I truly think Calvin's experience and his time that he's got around these players and that he's been able to prep for, I think he's going to be able to pull us away. But I think it's going to be close. I think Flo is going to do better than what he's giving himself credit for and what people are giving him credit for. And then we have, on the shield side, we have Jared and Jonas. So this one I feel like is the one that people should be wanting to watch. Not to say that the other ones aren't going to be exciting. I do want to mention here, people are forgetting that Jared was very close to putting Jonas in his worst position in probably the last two tournaments, and definitely in this draft. In that match, Jared got shit on by hacks, like really crapped on. You know, in the first start of the match here, he leads off with Regirock. He gets ×4 on defense by iron defensing, and Jonas sends out hard switches and Lantern, and Regirock goes for the body press, Lantern goes for the Scald. Lantern gets the Scald, which does, I think, like 70%, maybe 80. Anyways, it gets the burn. So immediately halves the body press, and then Jared does not KO the Lantern. Does about 80-something%, very close. I think if he KO'd the Lantern there, which was a really important Pokemon for Jonas to be able to switch into Basculin if it was Water Absorb. I'm assuming it was because his Arctozolt was Volt Absorb. I feel like the match would have started to go into Jared's favor. So Jared gets burned, he switches out Regirock to save it for a sack, or if it's rest, hopefully get a good rest in there. And then his Basculin gets 98% critted by Moltres. So right there, Basculin gone. Really big threat for Jonas, gone from a crit. Jared keeps trucking away, gets in Muck, which is probably the best Pokemon in this matchup against Jonas's team. His Muck gets first turn, Scorching Sand, burn. So just absolute, I think there was another crit in there, just ruthlessly crapped on by hacks. So you know, you guys gotta think about that. Like, Jared was doing actually pretty good, and he has a good matchup. His team does really well against Jonas, in my opinion. You know, if he runs a weakness policy Regirock, you know, lets Cobalion attack him, and then he Earthquakes a Cobalion at +2. You know, it's just, he has those things available to him. You know, Basculin is great for Moltres, like a special attacking Basculin. You know, things like that. He just has a good matchup. I think it's a lot closer than what people are giving it credit for. I'm actually gonna, you know, be wild here. I'm gonna say that Jared is gonna take this 2-1. I just think he has a good matchup, and usually Jared is a player, I think he can win against anyone. He can also lose against anyone, but I also think when it counts, Jared really puts in a strong effort, and I think that he can bring this to a win. So this isn't to say that Jonas' chances aren't higher than Jared's. I think he has a higher, like, you know, in numbers, I think, you know, it's like a 55-45. It's probably a little bit higher, 60-40, but I think Jared is going to really pull this off, and I think he might shock some people. So really hope that one comes through. Good luck to both of you players, though. So, and then last here on the playoffs, we have Reggie versus Robin. So this one will be a tight match, but I think Robin's versatility and bulk in his team, while he doesn't have as good a recovery as Reggie, I think might be a problem. So as we've seen, Robin really got a hang of Reggie's team in that match, and Reggie kind of picked it up late in the later stages of the match. Reggie played pretty impatient at the beginning. I think if he can play more patient in the beginning and really look at the reliable recovery his team now has with Aromatisse, Chimeco, and Quagsire, which are all really great Pokemon to verse Robin. You know, that Quagsire being just phenomenal for that Feraligatr, which for sure has to come. Probably not going to be physical if Quagsire is going to be around. But anyways, you got to remember Reggie, you know, played pretty impatient. If you guys watched the match, he basically had Talonflame out and he defogged right in Piloswine's face. You at that early the stages, you got to predict that maybe Piloswine has Rock Slide, and, you know, just scout it out, check it, make sure that you can see if it does or it doesn't. definitely don't do that again. So this one's a really hard one to score. I definitely don't think it's going to be a 2-0. I believe whoever wins the first one might be the person that takes it, though. So yeah, that's how I feel about playoffs. As to who I think is going to win or who the grand finals are going to be, I have no idea. I think these matches are a lot tighter than some of our other seasons. We just have so many good players now. There really isn't any lopsided matchups like there has been in the past in terms of, you know, 1 versus 4, 1 versus 8, things like that. There isn't anything like that. These players are actually very close in skills. So hats off to all these guys who made playoffs. You guys are incredible players, and we're going to move on to what I think are the top 10 commanders. For the top 10 commanders, or the commander power ranking, I have at number 1 Primarina, which I will do a little segment on, of Primarina basically going unchecked. Obviously, I didn't do every single game, every single attack, but some highlights of Primarina just basically nuking team, whether it's resisted or not. So that's not to say all these other captains didn't do the same at some point. Primarina just did this very consistently all the time, so didn't need any help doing it, didn't need hail up, didn't need weakness policy, didn't need shell smash, it just clicked attacks. So at number 2 is Cobalion. So I think this one kind of flew under the radar a little bit. Jonas found a really great Pokemon as a captain. Do I think it was too strong? Probably not. I just think it was a really great captain, but it definitely flew through the Shield division unchecked. It was a pretty hard Pokemon to deal with defensively. You know, whereas Primarina is hard to deal with offensively, I felt like Cobalion was really hard to take down. It could come out a lot, it could Volt Switch, it could set up rocks, take knockoffs and get justified and threaten with that +1. Volt Switch out, close combat, Iron Head, Swords Dance. It had a plethora of things that it could do. Even Calm Mind Jonas ran as well, so a very strong, threatening Pokemon. I think this was top tier captain. If Primarina wasn't so strong, I felt like Cobalion was definitely a number 1 captain. So at number 3 is Alola Muck. I just think this was a phenomenal pick. Jared really found a good captain. Just super hard to get rid of. Very reliable to come offensively. A great Pokemon because the Poison Touch knockoff is just so oppressive. It's so annoying. Nobody likes getting knocked off and then poisoned on top of it. Not to mention it's only weak to one thing, Immune Psychic. It's good against the fairies, which were top tier in this draft. So having a number 1 threat against fairies was super big. So a really great pick, and hats off to Jared on picking that one. So next up, number 4 is, I'm gonna say Incineroar. I think Incineroar just is such a versatile Pokemon. It can be set up, it can be bulky, it can be defensive, it can be specially defensive. You know, it has Intimidate, it's Fire Dark. You know, it's just it has so much it can do, and come to the match. It can be used as a lead all the time. Getting that Intimidate off basically guarantees its survival. It has Fake Out, it has Parting Shot, U-Turn. Just a super phenomenal Pokemon to bring no matter what. Definitely not a suffocating Pokemon to build around. This Pokemon can fit on the team anywhere. So at number 5, Venusaur. So at the beginning of the draft, we were like, oh my god, Venusaur's broken. I think he still was pretty broken. Sean, unfortunately, just didn't make the playoffs. I think this was due to not the fact that Venusaur wasn't as good as we thought it was. Doubling up on items was really harmful to this team. You know, we saw a few times people just doubling up on Assault Vests. Matt, I think, tripled up on Assault Vests. And this just crushed Venusaur. He didn't have the same potency that, you know, Primarina has in terms of offensive capability. I mean, he has growth under the sun, but at the same time, he doesn't just have that high special attack that Primarina has. And those high base moves like Moonblast having 95, you know. Venusaur's got Giga Drain and Sludge Wave or Sludge Bomb, so those are both not reaching 95. I think more itemization hurt this and potentially Sean in his drafts. So, but at number 6 is Slowking. Yes, although Hayden didn't perform as well as we wanted him to, Slowking was a top tier captain here. This Pokemon can set up Calm Mind. This Pokemon is a regenerator Pokemon. Future Sight, Teleport, extremely bulky. Yes, it's weak to knockoff and ghosts, which are very prevalent, we know. But still a phenomenal Pokemon with great coverage. You know, that Scald, Psychic, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt. I don't know if it gets Thunderbolt. It does get Flamethrower. Just really hard to deal with if built correctly. So, not to mention its Assault Vest set is just so strong. At number 7, we have Metagross. As we've seen, the weakness policy set is just it's so hard to break. You need to be able to try and take out Metagross, but you're concerned about hitting that weakness policy, and then that Rock Polish and Metagross just sweep it through your team, right? So just a really hard, tough Pokemon to break. You know, Clear Body really helping it out as well. So the only thing with this Pokemon is it's always going to be coming offensively. It could be coming defensively, just too strong to not bring it offensively though. At number 8, we have Blastoise. We all knew that this was going to be a super strong pick. I think what really hurt Blastoise is Louis' draft around it. Basically, Blastoise was just trying to carry the whole team on his back here, and obviously, you know, in Pokemon you can't do that too much, not very often anyway. But Shell Smash, Hydro Pump, Scald, just Surf, just super ridiculous, and especially having hidden power in this draft, it just made Blastoise super hard to check, especially after a Shell Smash. While his performance wasn't the best, Blastoise definitely, if we're going to have a draft like this, again, probably needs to move out of that captain spot. Just in the wrong hands, or in the right hands, this is going to be a Pokemon that's just going to sweep through the draft. So at number 9, we have Darmanitan. Now, Connor, same as Louis and Hayden, I felt like the only thing that hurt Darmanitan is their team or their playstyle. I just think this is a Pokemon that was just going to be ridiculous in this draft. At 317 speed, and in a draft like this, you would be allowed to run Choice Band and Life Orb since the speed is pretty good. And you all know Flare Blitz, Choice Band, Sheer Force is just absolutely going to crush everything. You're basically getting 2-hit KO'd by anything, if not 1-hit KO'd. Last but not least, we have Mega Absol at number 10. This is kind of my wildcard one. I do think this captain would have been ridiculous in the right hands. Having Swords Dance, Sucker Punch, and Magic Bounce, and having strong special attack capabilities, I think this could have been an absolutely ridiculous cleaner. You know, Leo, we've seen Leo kind of use it late in the part of the draft here, but not used correctly in the beginning by Norman here. I just think that Swords Dance, Sucker Punch, we all seen Bisharp do so well with that set. I think this would have been an absolutely ridiculous Pokemon to deal with in the right hands. So, that's how I feel about the top 10 commanders. Let me know what you guys think. I'm super curious. These are kind of things that I would hope to like get some discussion around. And yeah, we'll move on to the honorable mentions. On to the honorable mentions now. We have Feraligatr, Mega Houndoom, Rotom H, Salazzle, and Flygon. I think these captains were really strong as well. Not quite as potent as the other guys, but I think they were still very well used and very well-rounded captains. Barring, I think Salazzle was not the greatest captain, but I think Calvin made it a really strong captain. Yeah, that's really all I got to say about those honorable mentions. We're going to go on to that Primarina segment that I told you guys about. So I'm going to bring up the Primarina stats. So, Primarina season stats, you guys know about the kill leaderboard, 17-7, KOs and feints, and then season damage. So what I did for this is I went through all the games, added up all the percent. Obviously I didn't calculate the HP damage. I just can't do that unless you know the opponent's HP, EVs, and all that stuff. So I just calculated the percent. Primarina dealt 1,465%. For being in the, I think, 5th spot, I think is what it was. This is really strong considering Flo's Arctozolt, which is in 1st, dealt 1,556% damage. And the Arctozolt requires a little bit more setup than the Primarina. Primarina just can click this all day long. So Primarina also dealt 560% damage before it took its first feint in the season, which I think is ridiculous. That's a ton of percent. So if you're not one-hit KOing everything. Primarina was also led 4 times, and it was won all 4 times. Now, obviously, he only lost 1 match, so like maybe it's insignificant, but I think the point here is that as a captain, to be able to just lead it and fire off Moonblast and Surf, I think was pretty nuts. And I also think this helped him win a lot of games, sending it in early. And then last but not least, this Primarina was able to run 6 different sets. Now, one was obviously the banded Primarina against Zeb, but I am going to count it because it can work, and you could catch somebody off guard. It's just not nearly as good as the spec set. So those sets were the spec set, Life Orb set, Calm Mind, Draining Kiss set, Subtoxic set, Perish Trap, and then the band. So that's to be able to run your captain 6 different ways and it be able to be useful. Pretty ridiculous. Really hard to kind of predict what Matt's going to bring with it. This is not taken away from Matt either. I think, you know, Matt able to build them like this and see these builds, really kudos to Matt on that. He's a really expert prepper and team builder. So but yeah, so I'll show you guys a little bit of a Primarina going unchecked throughout the draft. So nothing too crazy, but I mean, you could see Primarina, you know, dealing up to 80% against Quagsire, and then, you know, 40-something% to Venusaur. Pretty rough. Taking a Flare Blitz from Darmanitan. Just things like that make this a really dominant Pokemon captain. But we'll move on from the commanders. We'll move on to my top draft picks, and I've mixed in a little bit like top draft picks and like my favorite ones that I think were really awesome to see and performed well, and will probably be used in later drafts now that they've been figured out. So without ado, we have the top 10 draft picks. Number 1 is undoubtedly Silvally. Obviously, I didn't really want to put this one here because there were Silvallis in tier 5, and for a tier 5 pick to get 95 base stats all the way across the board and whatever type you needed to fill your team, I think that was just a little bit broken. Definitely should have been higher in my opinion. So Arctozolt as well. This just was a completely dominant Pokemon, ran through the entire draft. Virtually unchecked, barring, you know, the Seeking, Lightning Rod, and the Piloswine hard checking it. There's not much really that it's being checked by. I mean, this thing also hit Registeel for like 50%. It 2-hit KO'd it, which is pretty ridiculous considering Registeel is one of the best defensive Pokemon in the draft. Pretty redonkulous. So very strong Pokemon. But this isn't to take away from Flo and Jonas. I mean, nobody else drafted it, and they weren't first pick. So this is a Pokemon that got found out in this type of draft. It just might have been a little bit too potent. I think it has like 36 kills combined between Jonas and maybe a little less, sorry, between Jonas and Flo's Arctozolt, which is kind of way out of this world. So, but at number 3 we have Miltank. I think this just was a great tier 4. Being a fast, bulky Pokemon is super obnoxious. You know, this Pokemon is outspeeding some offensive threats in this draft, and to be outsped by a defensive Pokemon, pretty rough when you're trying to team build against it. Not to mention it gets Milk Drink, it gets Stealth Rock, it gets Heal Bell, and a plethora of coverage. We've seen Matt and Chris both run this in a little bit more offensive fashion with, you know, like I think Matt had a Life Orb set on this mill tank before or something like that. It was more offensive, that's for sure. So pretty crazy Pokemon. This is one that I'll definitely look to draft more on. And at number 4, this is definitely a Pokemon I'm going to look to draft more often. Hariyama. I think this is just a phenomenal fighting type. Its base defenses don't look great, but I think it's 140 base HP really allowed it to survive a lot of stuff. Not to mention, yes, it's slow, but it gets priority, I believe, in Bullet Punch and Mach Punch, which is, that's fucking awesome. And like I told you guys, I think in multiple draft reviews, having a bulky defensive revenge killer is just so strong. You have so much more options, and it's such a more reliable option to, you know, sometimes not switch in your fast revenge killer and then have him walled on the next turn, right? Whereas, you know, Hariyama can go in, have good coverage, he can revenge kill, or he can fire off a really strong attack predicting a switch, right? So number 5, Piloswine. We've seen this kind of start growing up through the drafts here, being a really dominant Pokemon. That Eviolite Thick Fat is just so strong, such a reliable rocker with Ice Shard. The bulk in this Pokemon, just from its Eviolite and its base stats and Thick Fat, allow it to put those EVs into attack or other places and spread it out more often. So it makes it a really good Pokemon to have. Very flexible in its EV spread. At number 6, we have Tauros. So I kind of bounce back and forth between maybe this was too low. Should it have been higher? But I think this was just a good Pokemon in that tier, because Tauros in a bigger draft is not nearly as good. But I don't think he was like really oppressive in this one. I just think he was a good Pokemon on the team. That 350 speed tier, sheer force, intimidate, toxic options, just a really great Pokemon to have. Its bulk was really good too. So just an awesome Pokemon, really hard to prep for since its coverage is good and it hits very hard, outspeeding a ton of stuff in this draft, in both Sword and Shield sides. So Basculin still sitting in tier 5, sitting at number 7 here. This Pokemon sitting in tier 5 for so long is just it's a crime. Having Mold Breaker, adaptability, and Reckless, just this thing's a cannon, physically or special attacking wise. It can do both. It has flip turn. Its speed is good. I think it's 322 or 328. I mean, to be able to flip turn and chip down a team and not be what's that one? The fish one. That looks like a Barracuda. I forget its name. Anyways, to have that type of Pokemon in a tier 5 pick is just it's a phenomenal pick. I think it's totally fine being in T5. I think you need to balance out T5 a bit and have some of those gems in there. But we'll get into some of the ones that I don't think should be in as well. Moving down the list, Mesprit. This Pokemon was just played super well throughout the entire draft. It's perfectly balanced where it is. It can be a rocks, it has U-turn, it can be set up. It's a good lead. It can be a bulky chipper, you know, a bulky offensive Pokemon. It can kind of do it all. Just a really good Pokemon. Definitely not oppressive, just really top tier pick. So Hitmonchan. So these last two are a little bit biased since I played Reggie just a couple weeks ago. Hitmonchan, just I was looking at its HP and be like, we can deal with 50 base HP. We'll be fine. Lo and behold, I get in the match and I'm like, holy, this thing's bulky. I don't know how to get rid of this thing. It was just it's crazy because Hitmontop's always so sought after, and you don't see Hitmonchan nearly as much, but it does the same thing without Intimidate, and it's really dang bulky. I'm not going to bring up it to compare the stats, but it's pretty dang close. It does, you know, does the same thing in terms of Rapid Spin. Yes, it doesn't have Technician, but he has Iron Fist and he has all the punches, including Mach Punch. So, and then he does have Poison Jab as well. So he's got good coverage for himself. Really, I think the only thing is he doesn't have Knockoff. That might be why he's down so low. But regardless, this Pokemon is just really hard to break through. You don't have a really strong Wall Breaker. As you can see, I hit him with a Air Slash with Rotom Fan. That was a semi-invested special attacking Ronin fan, and it did absolutely doo-doo to the Hitmonchan. So very strong pick by, I think, Reggie, and I think he was the only one with it. So and then at number 10, Reggie was definitely the only person with this Pokemon, Chimeco. So this is your defensive dream come true Pokemon. It has everything. So it had Defog, Healing Wish, Heal Bell, Wish. There was another one. I can't remember, but it's got Toxic. Oh, it's got Reliable Recovery and Recover. Future Sight. It's got Cosmic Power, Stored Power, Levitate. Just like, it's got everything you need. It's like a knockoff of Bronzong because he's not the Steel type. But having that Levitate, a little bit more speed than Bronzong, obviously less bulky, but the Reliable Recovery, just super, super awesome pick. I can't wait to see this Pokemon more. Definitely going to be picked up by people in the coming drafts. If we're needing to pick a tier 5, definitely one to look for. So, but that's it for my top tier draft picks. Guys, let me know what you think of these. I kind of want some discussion swirled around. I'll leave a humongous post in the thing because some people just like to read rather than talk. I'm going to timestamp these for you guys too if you want to just click on the ones that you want to look at. But yeah, please let me know what you think. Give us some discussion and let's swirl around some ideas. What's too high and what's too low? So we'll start with the too high. These are not like, oh my god, these were too high, they just should have been lower. Oh, why? These are ones that I just maybe think, like, I'm just talking about it. Like, it's not like, man, these should have been lower for sure. I wanted to bring up these points, for the next time we run a draft like this. So these tier 3 captains, now I could have got into like tier 4s, that might have been too high, but I mean, super controversial in the tier 4s. Who knows? But I think for tier 3s, it's a little bit more black and white because, the captains, the thing is you have to bring them to every single match. They have to be useful. They have to be potent. Yes, there's bad captains, and totally keeping bad captains in that tier is totally fine. But the thing is, I feel like these Pokemon could have made a good splash in the draft and brought some different uniqueness to this draft. So number 1 is Alola Raichu. So you had so much weather, so much double speeding around, but you had this Alola Raichu, which is not nearly as potent as, Venusaur. In my opinion, not as potent as, Stoutland. And then you had Victory Bell, you had, 2 Arctozolts, which almost 30 plus kills combined together. I think this Pokemon should have definitely been down in tier 4. It would have been, totally balanced because Pinkerton's in T4 too. If you move Pinkerton down, totally fine. I think having that double speed in the Electric Surge would have been awesome. It would have been a really good splash to finally see something like this. A Pokemon that's not too difficult to check either. I mean, you wait for the terrain to go down, because sometimes people don't run Terrain Extender, or you knock off. You have Sucker Punch. It's a Psychic type, so there's ways to deal with this, and Ghosts are strong ways to deal with as well. There were strong Ghost counters for this, so Dusknoir, Dusclops, Runerigus, Cofagrigus, Mismagius. I mean, there was just a lot of ways to deal with it, so I totally think this would have been a viable option to put lower. But we're moving on to number 2. This one, hands down, should have been lower. Yes, we live and we learn. I think we all voted this into T3, so obviously we learned a lesson. This just definitely was not a captain. Its move pool was so shallow. It definitely was a reason why Chris didn't perform well. This thing was a detriment to his team 90% of his matches, so just a terrible move pool. I think it probably would have been good being at T4. Just another dragon to draft, and a good dragon, just not a good captain dragon. So not much too much more to say about it. Just terrible move pool, not a good captain. Definitely should have been T4 in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think. But number 3, so this is where it's gonna get crazy, and I hope I see some crazy comments about this. Politoed. So the thing is Rain's always kind of, like, it's busted in not busted, but it's super oppressive in laddering. We know Rain doesn't perform very well in draft. I think this would have been the perfect time to put Rain down a little bit lower and balance Rain out a bit. I mean, you have things like Dreadnought that was at the captain level anyways, so people would have had to get really, really fancy with their Rain team and draft some crazy tier 5s. I don't think there was really any tier 4s taking advantage of Rain. If there was, I think it's like Amistar, if I'm not mistaken. But like, those are things that are just like, you know, a little bit harder to deal with. So I think it would have been pretty cool to see Rain a little bit lower and potentially get that win that Rain has been wanting for so long in draft. So it would have been good to compete with all these weather teams running around. You know, just another factor to add in, you know, for these type of drafts. Considering we've seen Hail be super strong, we've seen Sand be strong, obviously with Stoutland, and then, you know, finding these new Sun teams with that Torkoal and Victory Bell, Torkoal being an awesome draft pick as well. So at number 4, Alamamala, this one, not too much to say about it. I just think it would have been good having a water regenerator down a tier, because it just wasn't a good captain in my opinion. Yes, it's good to bring it every match, but it's pretty passive. It gets set up on, definitely could have been lower. But number 5 and the last one is Yuxi. Mesprit was in tier 4, and Mesprit potentially just is a better draft Pokemon than Yuxi. Yuxi is bulkier. I think, yes, its bulk might have been a problem, but I mean, you had things like Registeel that were, you know, running around. I don't see any reason why this couldn't have been down. This could have been a good lead for somebody. You know, it has Levitate, it has U-Turn. You know, I think it has Knockoff, it has Toxic T-Wave, I think it has Setup. You could bring it physically or specially. I remember just a Pokemon that I think would have been awesome versatility to have at tier 4. As we've seen, tier 4 got pretty slim near the end. So that's it for Too High. Again, you guys, let me know what you think. I would really like to hear your opinions on this. Were these Pokemon too low? So too low as in, you know, too powerful basically. So for their tier, should they have been worth more? Obviously number 1 is Primarina. You guys know this definitely needed to go up. It just was too strong. We've seen it perform super well in a big draft, and we thought about moving it up just from that. So I definitely think this Pokemon was worth much more than it was tiered at. So and at number 2, we have Cobalion. So this one I think was just kind of a good draft pick. I don't think it's so much as it's overpowered. I mean, it's not getting 18 kills or anything like that, right? I think it was just a very good defensive Pokemon. Super versatile. I think it was just a phenomenal captain pick. So I guess I kind of swayed after making this a bit. I think it was just a good draft pick. But guys, let me know what you think about this Cobalion. Number 3 is a combination of Arctozolt and Aurorus. I think one or the other should have been higher to balance this out. Obviously, we didn't know Arctozolt was going to be this strong in this type of draft. Now we know. Definitely, I think it should be higher in the next draft. It just was uncheckable, really, unless you had Piloswine. So, or, you know, you're basically playing on thin ice the entire match, right? So, at number 4, we have Silvally. I think this just took away a lot of people's versatility and uniqueness in drafting. Basically, if they, you know, didn't draft so well, and at the end of the draft they're like, fuck, I don't have this, they basically just drafted Silvally. They didn't really have to think about it too much. You know, you need a fairy retardant, you just draft Silvally Poison. No point in drafting Arbok or something cool like that. You just draft Silvally Poison because it's just way more versatile and it's got way better stats. Not much more to say about that. I think everybody probably agrees with that. If not, let me know. But at number 5, we have Tauros. So like I said, I kind of wavered on this, but I definitely think it was just a good gem pick. I don't think it's overpowered. I don't think it was too oppressive. Just a really hard Pokemon to prep for and a good pick at tier 5. At number 6, Bellossom. I am hands down going to say this Pokemon definitely should be higher. Basically, when we see this Pokemon picked, because it will be picked in the future, we will see its Wrath, and we have seen its Wrath a little bit in this draft. So obviously it took Chris a little bit longer to get it moving sometimes, but the thing is it doesn't need help. It can set up on its own, It's super bulky. It's got Quiver Dance. It's got Shrink Step. It's got Moonblast. It's got Sludge Bomb. It's got Giga Drain. I think I said Shrink Step. Just a really strong Pokemon. Doesn't need any help setting up. So reliable recovery as well, while lowering the opponent's attack. Just really ridiculously hard to deal with. You know, you get this on a wrong prediction or a wrong switch, well, GG, man. Because it's going to be able to lower your attack, it's going to be able to boost its special defense. Just a super hard Pokemon to break. Definitely should be tier 4 in the coming drafts. If not higher, I definitely don't think this should be T5. So, and then we have number 7, Aromatisse. This one I kind of just I put here because you had Florges at tier 3, and while Florges is, you know, arguably a better fairy, Aromatisse got some nice things for it, like Mystical Fire, Nasty Plot. You know, it has things going for it like that. Yes, it doesn't have Synthesis or Defog, but the thing is it has way higher health, so it's, you know, more or less just as bulky, and not a captain. So I think this potentially could have been a good captain to draft to balance out how good Aromatisse has been in this draft. Not oppressive by any means. I just think it was very good and probably could have been moved up to captains to balance out these fairies a bit. And then number 8, this one, a little bit biased on this one. Meowstic has been sitting in T5 for a long time. To have such reliable screen setting, I think this promotes such a toxic playstyle. I definitely think screens, the reliability in screen setting, this definitely needs to move up. Not so much in a big draft, but I definitely think this needs to move up in a draft like this. Just the ability to set screens, and screens just not having very good counters. Yes, you have Brick Break. Yes, you have Defog. But the thing is like those things take time to set up if you're on the wrong Pokemon and break, right? So I really think this should be at least tier 4. You know, to kind of take away from the person's draft a bit if they want to draft screens, since you know, it's a pretty oppressive playstyle. But that's what I think about these mons. Let me know what you guys think, please. I would like some discussion on this. Like I said, I'll leave a big wall of text because some of you like reading rather than listening, but I will also timestamp this if you just want to skip ahead. And to end it off, I'm just gonna play my favorite games, and basically I like watching these ones the best with a little bit of music. And yeah, good luck to those guys in playoffs, and thank you guys for having me.